Okay, I'm going to be doing this video. It might be a little loud because I have fans going. It's now kind of hot in Tacoma, and folks will laugh when we tell people it's hot here. Again, anything over 75 for a lot of folks here is getting hot. For me, anything over 75 is hot. So I think today it's going to be 80, but in our defense, we don't have air conditioning. Most people don't have air conditioning here. So that makes things a little bit challenging. Most people would love to be our temperature here. But anyway, that's not what this video is about, right? Make sure you join our Discord. I will put that down in the description box. If I don't, there are videos that have the link that you can go to. I have it where it's open at any time, and you can join it anytime. It doesn't time out. But this video is talking about Seattle and the streetcar. Okay, I did videos about this before, talking about how Seattle has this planned streetcar system, which really and truly would be amazing, because it literally has a couple of different, it has the South Lake Union line and it has the First Hill streetcar line. Those are currently built, okay, but they're not connected, right? They're on opposite sides of downtown. And technically, there's only a little over a mile and a half, I think it's a mile and a half, that needs to be constructed to connect the two lines together. Okay? So if you look at the current, because we have a streetcar here in Tacoma, they call it a light rail because it's mainly not sharing traffic for a lot of it, but it's basically a streetcar if you look at the system that's built. We have a system that's about that distance that's needed. So it's about a 1.6 mile long system. Okay, so it's not super long. It doesn't take very long to get there. It's a very basic system. Okay, but this is all that makes the difference to connect these two systems in downtown Seattle, and it has been a problem to connect them. Okay, now other cities like Atlanta is building a beltway of, light rail or streetcars. So literally Atlanta, which already has heavy rail subway system, is already also building the streetcar system, which will connect downtown, because subways don't really connect downtown that well. I mean, you can, but it's extremely expensive. Streetcars connect downtowns because obviously the tracks are a lot cheaper to build. It's above ground. They're usually for short distances to connect different little neighborhoods together and all of that. Whereas subways connect big, vast differences, right? Stations are a mile or so apart. Streetcars, they're maybe a few thousand feet apart, right? But anyway, Seattle had an opportunity to connect these two disconnected, jointed lines, and maybe even form a beltway, because if they connect these two lines, it basically forms kind of like a U shape. And there is a possibility for them to actually form a complete circle. Now, that's probably never going to happen, because more than likely just connecting that 1.5 mile section may not happen. So back in the previous administration in Seattle, the mayor, and I forget his name, but he had originally wanted to push forward and get that connection completed. He had already gotten the First Hill streetcar line completed, and the whole plan was for Seattle Department of Transportation to connect this and actually have those 3 lines done, and they were going to extend another section as well. That hasn't happened. He got out of office because of controversy. There was an interim mayor, and so things like that just didn't really get pushed, but it was still in the plan. And then you got Mayor Durkan. Now, Mayor Durkan, I have said this before, and there were people that didn't like it, right? That video when I was talking about how the mayor of Seattle just was not, this is not the job for her, there were people that gave me a thumbs down on the video, and that's fine, that's their prerogative. But the reason why I said that is because she doesn't know how to lead. Now, I'm not saying that I could jump into the position of being a Seattle mayor and do, gangbusters, and people will be like, that's the world's greatest mayor. I'm not saying that I could do that either, but I'm not running for political office, especially of a very large emerging city. You know what I mean? She was elected, and yet she doesn't really know how. And I think some people elected her because people felt like electing a woman is very progressive. I really do think that that is the reason why she was elected. I believe she was the first female mayor of Seattle. I could be wrong. But the problem with that is that you want to make sure you have someone who's qualified. And she obviously is not. Tacoma has had, since we've lived here, 2 female mayors. Mayor Strickland, who was amazing. And then we have Mayor Wooders, who's doing a really good job. And they've done great. Both are black mayors. Actually, Mayor Strickland is Blasian. So they've done amazing. So it's not the fact that a female can't obviously be a mayor, because that's obviously not true. There's a lot of female mayors that do amazing, and a lot of female governors and senators who do amazing jobs. But you just don't throw anyone in the position, and I think that that's what happened in Seattle, because the head tax was a horrible thing. And I said that. I'm someone who believes in paying taxes for a lot of things. I voted to get the Sound Transit 3, right, which would have raised our taxes. I voted to, significantly, I voted to have the Tacoma Creates, which is an arts program, which is very expensive. I voted for the school ballot initiative, which would have raised our taxes quite a bit to rebuild schools here in Tacoma. So I'm not afraid of paying taxes. I'm also not afraid of businesses paying taxes and paying their fair share and even paying more for things. But the head tax made no sense then, and it makes no sense now. It was basically taxing big companies, and some of them don't have to be that big. But it was a way to go after Amazon. For some reason, they have this rub against Amazon. And when I say they, I'm talking the city council and the mayor. They have this rub against Amazon, more so than a lot of the citizens do. And so they wanted to charge a head tax for anyone making a certain amount of money, and the company that is valued this amount of money. I think if the company is valued at $10 million or greater, then there's a head tax on every employee. Now, that not only affected Amazon, it would have affected Facebook. It would have affected all of the many of the tech companies that are downtown or that's in Seattle. It would have affected Starbucks, which is based out of there, Nordstrom. It would have affected Expedia. It would have affected Uwajimaya, which is a grocery store, a local grocery store that basically specializes in mainly Asian groceries, but it's a very cool, awesome thing. I wish we had one down here, which is never going to happen, but it'd be cool if we had one. And so it would have impacted a lot of others just to go after Amazon, right? And the plan fell flat, because what Tacoma did was smart. It said, look, we will actually give you a tax incentive per person as long as that person makes a certain amount of money. So if you hire people that make, I think it's $60,000 a year, then we give you a head tax credit. We're giving you a credit. Now, there wasn't a lot of movement in the tech industry at that time for Tacoma, but what it did do is spur a lot of other businesses, support businesses, co-working spaces that actually a lot of these big tech companies use to quickly fill a void. So if a tech company says, hey, we have a little project that we're going to hire 10, 15 people to do, put it someplace. You know what I mean? So they go to these co-working places and they designed an office and say, look, this is big enough to grow to 30 people if you need it, but here's your 15 spaces. They hire their people, and a lot of these tech companies love that type of format. So some of those started to come down here, and you saw we went from having just one horse in the race in terms of co-working companies to now having, I think, 4 different ones. And that just happened in a short amount of time. And a lot of other companies have been starting to move into the market here because of that head tax credit. But the big ones haven't come yet, and they may never. And some people are saying that's fine. We don't want them down here. But it was a good push back to Seattle, telling companies you have an alternative, right? Well, the mayor and the city council pulled that tax back because it created a firestorm. It was some people believe it was one of the reasons why Amazon put out there they wanted an H2Q or HQ2. And that Amazon was looking for a way to find someplace else. Well, it maybe. And when New York snubbed Amazon and it landed outside of DC, it then just took all the money that it had planned and the ideas for New York and put it into nearby Bellevue. Bellevue, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. It looks almost like a mini Seattle with all the high-rises. It basically is getting those jobs. Probably about 12,500 jobs eventually, or if not more. So they're going to Bellevue. Bellevue's a lot more business friendly than Seattle. But the problem is that it's still in King County, and King County can basically do the same thing. Right? It doesn't make any... That's the part I don't get about the tech companies. They focus right in King County. Some have even went up to Snohomish. But they focus their energy in King County, but it's in the same county, so technically the county government can still do something similar, and it affects everybody. It's possible. They've talked about that. So that measure was pulled back. The head tax was pulled back, but the damage was already done. And Amazon felt like you should have actually talked to us about some of these issues, such as the lack of affordable housing, the homelessness, and various different things. We probably could have worked out a deal, helped with that type of thing, right? City didn't do that. That was a failure on the part of the city. Twice. Not only the head tax, but also the not involving a lot of the business community, which is what they should have done. The other failure was possibly having a toll down the middle of downtown. A toll road. I don't know what's happening with that, but that was another proposal. Bad idea. Another one was the developer wanted to basically build a brand new arena in downtown Seattle, in SoDo, but near the current stadiums. And they needed a street vacated, which is a tiny, piddly street that really no one uses. And the city council voted against that and said no. So now an investor that invested hundreds of millions of dollars buying all this land to build a huge stadium that would have supported hockey and basketball, that project's probably not going to happen, but they own a big chunk of downtown. Now, there was a lot of different people pushing against that. The port, for example, and some businesses, because they were saying congestion and all of that. But the city council said, no, we don't think that you should come. What I'm pointing out is that there's a lot of pushback when it comes to business, right? You add into that all of the struggles if you're a small business owner, just with the cost. The cost of retail space or office space, if you're a little tiny micro business or small business, are insane, right? So not only if you're a big business does Seattle kind of turn its back on you, but if you're a small business, it turns its back on you too, in a way. Right? And this is not just to rail against Seattle. These are facts. I'm just speaking the truth. So that became an issue too. Now, the city said and the council said, let's come up with a somewhat of kind of like an income tax for Seattle. Kind of. If you're a tech company or a big company like that, there's somewhat of an income tax type thing. That passed. That passed. So they still figured out a way to tax big companies. And the goal is, again, to tackle some of the certain issues that they're talking about, right? But here's the problem. Your golden goose will eventually leave. I've always said businesses and people can vote with their feet, and they often do. If there's a struggle or a situation or too much problem, they just vote with their feet. Why deal with it? Seattle's not the only show in town. So now the mayor, a year or so ago, halted the expansion of the streetcar system. I did all that to kind of get here. The expansion was, in her opinion, too much money. And I agree, it was quite a bit. It was very expensive. For a streetcar line going only 1.5 miles, it was extremely expensive. It would have more than paid for the streetcar system that was built in Tucson, Arizona, the one that was built in Cincinnati. It would have paid for their whole entire system just for this one little section. In fact, if you build any sort of rail type project here in Seattle, it's very pricey. Now, some will say it's due to we're in an earthquake area, it's due to the soil, it's due to all these different things. Maybe, I don't know. But it is very pricey. So she decided to put that on pause to review it. Now that to me was another bad mistake, and I say she, the mayor, decided to do that, Mayor Durkan. And I said that was not a good idea because the cost of everything here goes up literally almost every month. I mean, every month things go up. And you know the cost of construction is going to go up. I mean, heck, if I wanted to add a room onto this house, you need to put down pretty good chunks of money. More so than other places. It's expensive to add a room to any house anywhere. But here, you got to be putting down a lot of money because construction costs are way overblown. And so on a commercial project dealing with the city, you know it's going to be super expensive. And then couple that with the Seattle Department of Transportation, they're not really that great at timelines. Sound Transit, given how slow they are, they're a lot better with timelines and a lot better with money management. They're not building the streetcar system in Seattle. It's Seattle Department of Transportation. Sound Transit is building the entire big rail system, the light rail system, the heavy rail system, the Tacoma Link in downtown Tacoma. They're building all those. So that's also within itself a problem when you're talking about the streetcar system in Seattle. So the mayor put that on hold. Meanwhile, the cost to do this kept going up and up and up and up because, reviews take forever to get done. After the review came back, and many businesses, by the way, in the International District and other parts of downtown were saying, yes, we want this. Please do it. Yes, we want this done. Please push forward on this project. Because the line would have ran right in front of a lot of tourist places where you currently don't have a lot of parking. I mean, duh. The whole point is that the light rail system could take people to different points. The streetcar line can pick people up from First Hill off of the light rail line because the streetcar and the light rail are pretty much in the same spot. The streetcar could then take you into the International District. From the International District, you could then go all the way up through to Pike Place Market and different places along the waterfront. It would have really helped ease a lot of the parking issues. It's just common sense. Or you could have taken the light rail down to the International District and take the streetcar line in, right? For people that's not from here, it's confusing. I get it. But the whole point was it would have been a lot easier for people to get around downtown, right? But that didn't happen because she waited. Then the price, when she did decide to go forward, the price ballooned, much more so. So then the question is, okay, now how are we going to pay for it? Had she inked the deal It would have been set in stone, and they would have been able to push forward. Construction would have started. They probably would have been close to being done at this point, right? And if there was a little bit of a cost overrun, the city would have had the money to do it. But she waited. Now, when she decides to push forward on it, obviously it takes some time to get that started. The whole sickness happened, and everything stopped. So before they could do any sort of work on the project, they have to stop, because now, after it took a long time to decide whether or not they should do it, this issue happened and things stopped. Right? So now the costs went up again. So the question is, well, where do we get the money from? How do we get the money? Part of it they want to get from, tech and different things, and pull money in different ways. But the city council, some of those folks are saying it shouldn't happen at all. We shouldn't do it at all. There's no point in doing it. Let's basically pause it and not even consider it. Let's scrap it. Now it's on pause again because the global sickness has impacted construction, especially on projects that have never even started to begin with. So that's part of it. The other part of it is that they really and truly don't have the ridership numbers because of the sickness. A lot of the proponents are saying that this is a good thing, but the opponents are saying, look at how slow the traffic is on the other two lines. There's no point in doing this. It's a waste of money. We should use that money for other things, blah, 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 blah. And obviously the ridership is down because no one's able to go places. Right? So now there could be a push to scrap the entire system. Not just the 1.5 mile connection, but the entire system that they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on. There's talk that some council members want to cancel the whole thing. So the South Lake Union line, which is already up and running, was the first one. The First Hill Streetcar line, they want to basically scrap that. Not all, but there's some there's the talk of some. This goes back to poor leadership. Now, people will point out different things about Mayor Durkan and how horrible she's handled a lot of different things, from CHOP or Chaz, whichever way you want to call it, to other things. And they have good ballot points. That's not what this video is about. This video is about the fact of other poor decisions when it comes to business growth, and when it comes to helping get people moving around in Seattle, especially downtown, and the parking issues. So it's kind of like they're wanting to solve certain issues, but they're getting in their own way of solving those issues, because there's other things you have to do. Here in Tacoma, on the other hand, I don't see that happening. We're begging Sound Transit to hurry up and connect Federal Way to Angel Lake, the light rail system, and hurry up and build it down here. We're begging them to actually come down here, and even begging them to even go a lot further. Thank you. Oh no, you got me a nice drink from Sonic. Even begging them to build more light rail into Tacoma. We feel like we've actually haven't gotten our money's worth, right? And to even add to that, the light rail extension in Tacoma is almost completed. So even during this whole sickness, it didn't shut it down. They didn't shut down construction. They didn't stop that. They've been working all this time. And actually the sickness helped because a lot of businesses were closed, and so traffic was not heavy, so they were able to really plug away and move forward. So there's a big difference between Seattle Department of Transportation and Sound Transit. That's a big difference. But the other thing is there's a big difference in leadership. So I think that they should push forward on the project. Businesses in Seattle seem to not be able to have much of a voice that's being heard, but there's businesses saying this should continue. I think that if this project doesn't go forward, you're going to have a lot of backlash. And by backlash, I think businesses voting with their feet and leaving. Because obviously, this would be something that would connect when tourism comes back. Tourists can go all around downtown pretty easily. This would be a way to solve a lot of the parking issues. And yet, folks are worried about, some of the council members are worried about money, which they should be. And they're talking about there's less money in the bank because of the global sickness. And that's very true. But had the mayor not paused this project to begin with, none of this would have been an issue. They would have had more than enough money to take care of the situation. She put pause on it because she felt like it was too expensive. Right? It's compounding issues. So, to be honest with you, she should, in my opinion, leave. Step down. There are other people saying that she should step down too for different reasons. But I've said before that she's just not the person for the job. And that seems to be very evident. Anyhow, we'll see what happens. Hopefully they won't scrap the entire system, but there's talk that it may, because Sound Transit is actually financing the expense of this in terms of the operational expense. That runs out in 3 years. And the streetcar line already operates at a deficit, so that it's not making enough to fix itself. See, unlike the Tacoma Link, the Tacoma Link is financed by businesses down here. We paid for it to be free. After it expands to double its size, then there's going to be a charge for it, so people are going to have to pay for it. But Sound Transit will help buffer the cost. That's not the case up in Seattle when you're looking at the streetcar line, because it's going to have to be reliant solely on the people of Seattle and ticket sales and all of that. So once Sound Transit no longer is financing it, then what are they going to do? So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully they build the system and really and truly focus on getting more development. Quincy is really crazy right now. Hopefully they focus on getting more businesses developed down there so they can get the revenue from that, come up with creative ideas like other cities like Portland did. And Portland actually, along the streetcar line, they have a zone where they have a special tax for all of the businesses along that zone. That makes more sense, because then you're able, it's not an exorbitant tax, but it's a small tax which helps finance the actual operation of the streetcar system. Again, you need to have the right people in the right job at the right time, otherwise it's going to fall apart. We'll see what happens. I could talk about this forever. Make sure you join our Discord, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I will see you. Take care.